Well, hello everybody. My name's Louise Savage of Louise Savage Muses. An extremely warm welcome if you are viewing my musings slash wafflings slash ramblings for the very first time, and an equally warm welcome if you are a returning viewer. So it is September. The leaves are turning on the trees over here in the UK. I went for a fantastic walk in the Wire Forest yesterday, managed about 9 miles. I was very proud of myself. And it's that time where it's lovely to come in from the cold and curl up with a really interesting book. So the book that I've chosen for this month's Book of the Month is Nineveh by Henrietta Rose Innes. Isn't that amazing, that cover? It's a face and it's sort of exploding with various beetly type, creepy crawly type insects. I love it. And this is a book that I picked up, I think, in West Kirby Books up in the Wirral in the UK when I was with Simon, my son, and book shopping up there. And I had never heard of it before. I hadn't heard of the author before, but there was something about it that I just felt was a little bit unusual. And having read it recently, I can absolutely attest to that. I don't think I've read anything quite like it before, which is something that always fascinates me. When you read an awful lot, it's nice to read something that's a bit different. I don't think I've read very many novels set in South Africa, for starters. So this is a book set in South Africa by a South African writer, and it's set in Cape Town, but it focuses on a fictional building development on the outskirts of Cape Town. And the main character is called Katya Grubbs, which I think is just the most fantastic name. It sounds like it should come from Dickens, especially because it's sort of nominative determinism, well, I can't say it, because she makes a living from carrying out pest control. She's got her own business, but she specialises in removing pests without killing them. So she protects the animals. She takes them to a distance away from where she's collected them, and she releases them into the wild again. So she's sort of got this little niche that she's created for herself. And I just absolutely loved her character, first of all. She's really gutsy. She doesn't care about getting scratched, about getting bitten, about, you know, the job that she does, she finds fascinating. She's not sort of disgusted by it. She doesn't mind being up to her hips in mud. And you know, that was something that I found really unusual and gritty in a sort of modern hero, if you like, or heroine, if you want to use that word. So I loved it for her. I loved it for the fact that her writing style is really interesting because it's very, very slow paced. So you're almost going through her existence, it feels like, you know, at a true life speed. But I couldn't put it down. I really, really enjoyed it. The plot it's not, you know, it's not over heavy with plot, but there is a good plot and there are some sort of little twists and meanders within it. So the storyline was good, but it's much more about her, and it's very much a novel about place as well. So one of the things that I think Rose Innes is questioning is who has the right to live where. The idea that as human beings, we move from place to place, we build something, it falls down, or it's left to deteriorate, and then we use the materials. And, you know, as human beings, we're very creative in the way that we recycle things, and we have been since the dawn of time. As somebody who's spent a long time stomping around ancient ruins, you know, for example, earlier in the year I was in Sicily, and we went into a cathedral, which was basically a Greek temple that had sort of been, the gaps between the columns had been filled in by a later generation. So that whole idea of sort of the movement of buildings and the way that, you know, what might have been the walls of a temple become the walls of someone's home, something that I find really, really interesting. So Katya is called upon to rid this, or at least she actually sort of touts for the business because she knows it's going to be a good job, to go and rid this brand new, beautiful urban development called Nineveh of some pests. She doesn't know what they are. Nobody's very clear about what these pests are, but they emerge during the rain, you know, after rain. And she's very sort of down on her uppers. She lives in this really sort of rather grotty apartment. She's had a very turbulent childhood. Her mother disappeared, died, and her father was a really sort of difficult man to grow up with. She and her sister were left with her father, and you know, they grew up sort of moving from place to place, sometimes sleeping in the backs of cars, that kind of thing, you know, really sort of itinerant childhood. And so the idea of sort of when she goes to clear out this property of these pests, she's given the opportunity to stay in this absolutely immaculate apartment for a few days. So that's quite interesting, seeing her in a different setting and the way that she reacts to that. There are some fantastic relationships in this book. The relationship with her dad is really interesting, but she also has a very close relationship with her sister, so much so that she's been very involved in her nephew Toby's life. And Toby actually works for her. He you know, and I really enjoyed, I'm very fond of my nieces and nephews, and I really enjoyed this close, tight relationship that she had with him. And he's a really young man. And I thought his sort of experimenting with a few adult ideas and concepts was really beautifully portrayed in this book. So all of those things were really, I just loved about it. And then there is the character of the property developer who has developed Nineveh. Now, he is quite a chunky guy. He lives, Katya first encounters his wife actually in there. She's removing some pests from a tree in their garden, and they've got some sort of party going on. So she and Toby are trying to do it really inconspicuously, and she meets this guy for the first time, and the shifting ground of her relationship with him is also really interesting. Now you've got all of that. You've got all these beautiful relationships, really, and I'm not, you know, I'm trying to be really careful not to give anything away, because as I say, there are some twists and turns in this novel. But also you've got this fantastic location. So side by side with Nineveh is a shanty town, but equally there are these really beautiful stretches of coast. And I mean, I've never been to South Africa, I've never been to Cape Town, but I can imagine that it is one of these places where, like you know, most cities across the world, where you've got, you know, the rich rubbing shoulders with the poor, people kind of knowing their place. And I'm using, you know, inverted commas around that because it's not something I approve of, but I think it never ceases to amaze me how, you know, you can move. I mean, our daughters live in Birmingham, so I'm often going to Birmingham, and side by side with a very affluent suburb, you'll have a part of the city where people are living in abject poverty. So that really is really shrewdly brought home, I think, in this novel. And then there's the description of the creatures themselves. I don't think you have to worry if you're a bit squeamish about that kind of thing. There are a few scenes where there's quite a bit of sort of water and mud and muck, but I don't think I would suggest that it shouldn't come with too much of a health warning on those grounds. But if in doubt, don't pick it up. I mean, I would imagine if you're a bit worried about creepy crawlies, the cover alone will probably put you off reading it. So yeah, I think I'm really glad I came across this book, because as I say, it's not been on my radar. I don't know whether anyone, I'd be really interested to find out if any of you lovely viewers have read it, and equally what your opinion of this novel is. And I'm not sure, I meant to check, I'm not sure whether she's written anything else. I need to look that out, because I do think she's got quite a fresh voice. So yeah, I really loved it. So I commend this to you. Please let me know if you have read it. Please let me know if you read it, how you get on with it, and just, you know, happy, lovely, joyful reading for what remains of September. Take care, everybody. Bye.